My name is Chris Coey, and I'll be taking you through some of the new features available in PowerTracks version 6. People familiar with previous versions should have no problem getting around in the new screen. You might notice a few new buttons. We're going to look at some of those right now, and some new features and maybe a few old features along the way. So, first thing to notice is that we have a couple of new buttons here, the Go to Previous Marker and Go to Next Marker button. What those do is allows us to jump around within a song, allows us to place markers at choruses and verses and various parts within our project, and these two buttons will allow us to jump forward and back to them. We can also jump directly to them, and we'll be doing that and a few other things a little later. So the other buttons on the screen you're probably familiar with: the View button, the MIDI driver setup, the audio setup, and the tools, etc., etc. There's flyby hints on all these buttons to tell you exactly what they do. So the other thing to take note of is that these windows here can be double-clicked into and entered, pop up a dialog, and you can enter new values for some of those. So that's another way to jump directly to a song. And we can also use these to change keys and meter and that sort of thing. That brings us to a new feature right away, which is the key change transpose feature. This feature is applicable to MIDI, and since we have a song already loaded here, we can demonstrate that right away. What happens is we've got this tune here. It's on your installation folder. The song's called melonbab.seq, and this tune's in 4/4 and it's in the key of F. Now if we double click on this F, we can change that to another key. Maybe we want to sing along to it or something, and we don't like that key, or we can't sing in that key. We can change this right here, and let's say we want to change it to I don't know, A. Okay, that's our favorite key, so we just click on that, we say OK, and we get a dialog right here that says the key has been changed. And what this allows us to do is confirm that we want to definitely transpose all our MIDI tracks in this song to the new key, and we just say yes, and it's going to just confirm one more time that yes, we're transposing it either up 4 semitones or down 8 semitones. I'm going to choose down 8 semitones because I don't think I can sing. If I can't sing in F, I'm definitely not going to be able to sing 4 semitones higher than that. So I'll choose no, and then our song is automatically changed to the new key. Here's the new key of A, and if we open up our notation, clicking on this button here, we can see that the chords have been transposed, and all the notation is nicely transposed for us. So that's handy. We can play that here. Just press the play button or the space bar. That's pretty low for a guitar, so we might want to choose a different key. Maybe that's a little too low. We could just revisit the key dialog, and you can change this as many times as you want, and we could go back to the original key and just say we want to go up 8 semitones, and then we're back to the original key and with the original chords. So that's a handy new feature. While we're in this song, this is one of my favorite songs for demonstrating the new guitar window, because this particular song has guitar channels. It's been played on a MIDI guitar on channels 11 to 16. So what we're going to do here is open up the new guitar window, or shall I say enhanced guitar window, and people familiar with previous versions will notice right away that it looks a little bit different. I'm going to open that up just as it's playing. Here it is down here. Before I do that though, I've just noticed that I don't have the button shortcuts that I like to have. There's many ways to open up various windows in PowerTracks. You can click on the window button, or access the item you want from the menu, or even the keyboard shortcut. As you can see here, we've got play is P and record is R. These shortcuts are quite handy as well. For me, I like to have the tools panel going, and I like to have the view panel going. Okay, now I've got the tools panel and the view panel going, and what these are is just basically shortcuts to, as I said earlier, the various menu items and ways to access the different features. I like to have these just floating around so that I can just quickly grab the tool or open the window that I want to, since there are several windows available. If you've got a huge monitor and have it set to a very high resolution, you could of course maximize this screen to its full size and open a whole bunch of windows at once. That way you don't have to keep accessing and opening and closing them. For the rest of us here that don't have a huge monitor, we're just going to open and close the windows as we need them. So as you can see here, we've got some there's the new button here that refers again to the new feature called the markers, which as I said earlier allows you to input special little flags at various points in your song, maybe to notify you that chorus is coming up, or to delineate the start of a new section or a solo section or the ending, or pretty much anything you want. These are fully customizable, meaning you can, when you click on that, you get a markers dialog. You can press insert, and it will automatically pop up with the position that we're at in the song right now. So right now we're at the first beat of bar 5, 13 ticks into it. We can of course change that to anything we want. We could say bar 12, right on the beat of bar 12, and we could say this is our verse 2. So let's do that. Verse 2. As you can see here, you can type in anything you like, and these are personal markers just for you to help you remind various points of your project. And as I said, with the other buttons we can jump back and forth to them very quickly, so it helps quite a lot with the editing process. We're just going to say this is verse 2, and you can see here that we've got it. The marker shows up here just to confirm. If we had a list here, it would they would all follow here sequentially, and so that's now in there, and we can jump to that marker now directly. If I press there, you can see that it jumps. This is our little position indicator. Also, there's one here. You can see that it jumps right to bar 12. And also, if we open up the bars view, where is that one now? Just go through here and open up the bars. You can see here that at bar 12, here's our little note to ourselves that this is the start of verse 2. Another feature that I'd like to show you with this particular song loaded is the enhanced guitar window. The reason I like this particular song to demonstrate this window is because this song, melonbab.seq, which is in your PowerTracks folder, it's a demonstration song. It was recorded on a MIDI guitar, and it was recorded on channels 11 to 16, which what that does is offers us the ability to view that precisely the way it was played on the guitar at the time. So it gives us a very, very accurate view of how the guitar is played. If this was recorded on all one channel, we could the guitar window will do its best to try to display it in the way it could be played on a guitar, but the best method by far is to record the MIDI guitar on channels 11 through 16, and that way you'll get an exact representation. So we're going to go ahead and open the guitar window here, and I'm going to do that on the View shortcut panel. So I click here and I get the guitar window. What you'll notice right away is that we've got a lot of circles here with notes in them. What that is showing us right away is a couple of positions of scales, very common scales, which would help us for soloing in this song. And those can be turned on and off or customized in this when you click the settings dialog, which is right here. Click on that and we get a window that shows us our string tuning, which is customizable, and that we are in fact in multi-channel mode, going, as I said, on channels 11 to 16. You can change our fretboard color. We can even actually send notes to the notation window just by clicking with our mouse on the frets of the guitar, which is quite handy for guitar players that might want to just enter a quick song. They know how to play it on guitar, and you want to enter it as notation very quickly. You can just click on the virtual guitar fretboard. So these settings right here are the ones that show us those scales, and we can deselect those and they'll disappear. We can select the note names based on the scale tones, the chord tones of the song, or the roots only, and this goes by a chord basis depending on our song. This auto set position is another one that allows the notes to be confined to a specific area. So if you want to learn a song, say in the fifth position, you could set that to the Aeolian, and we're going to get notes all trying to be fit into that fifth position so that they can be easily learned without having to jump all over the fretboard. The other setting is the auto set octave. Since guitar is played in a different octave than it's notated, quite often that's a nice one to set, and that way any new music that's brought in is automatically displayed correctly on the guitar. These other settings are fairly self-explanatory. Index finger position refers to the first finger being the relating to the position that you're in on the guitar fretboard. So we're just going to say OK to this. I think we'll show notes again at both positions just like we were earlier, and we'll see how this looks now. If we press play, we first have to make sure that we're highlighting the currently selected track is track 4, which is the guitar channels, the guitar track. And if we press play here, we can see very nicely the chord shapes, the individual notes, and exactly how this song was played. This is also very nice for learning solos. You can, as I said, confine things to a specific position, learn the solos without having to jump all over the fretboard. So if we, for example, wanted to make sure that whole solo is played in that position, we can say just play the notes that are in that position. Don't show us any out of range notes, and we'll see what that looks like. So that's a fairly nice new feature. Okay, another new feature found in PowerTracks version 6.0 will be very, very important to people that are getting into multi-track recording. And what this is the ability to access multiple sound cards within PowerTracks. Previous versions, you could only access one sound card. That was the one that was set up in the in your Windows system as a multimedia sound card. With this new version, we can actually set, we can choose as many sound cards as we would like, up to 16 channels worth. That would be 8 stereo sound cards, which is probably more than you can actually fit into your computer. So plenty of room for accessing sound cards for both input and output. That's accessed through the audio or the options preferences audio settings setting. We'll get a dialog that previous users might find a little familiar. This allows us to set the temp directory for our scratch files and for our edits. I like to set that right away to perhaps my temporary drive, which is fairly empty and not my main Windows drive. I like to set that to something like, on this computer, like F. And this setting here, we want to make sure that we're recording stereo, which is left and right channels. These other settings here are set automatically. When you press this button here, it'll analyze your sound card and choose the best settings here. Usually you don't have to play around with those too much, but if you are having trouble with synchronization problems, you can try changing some of these settings. You may get lucky. This offset millisecond is a very useful one. For what that does is accommodates drivers that are slightly misreporting where the audio is in relation to the sound card, so that PowerTracks can deal with the difference in opinion of where the WAV file is playing at any particular time, because PowerTracks has to get its information from the driver that comes with the sound card, and that's not always 100% accurate. Here we have the recording properties, and basically we've narrowed it down to 2 basic settings, and usually 99% of the time this is the one that you'll want, is the 16-bit 44.1 kilohertz recording quality, and that's basically commonly referred to as the CD quality recording, which is like what you would, if you have a CD player, that's the recording quality that you get. Okay, so here's the new feature. If you click on the drivers button, you'll get an audio drivers panel that looks very similar to the MIDI drivers panel that you see when you first start up the computer. This particular computer that I'm working on doesn't have much in the way of extra cards. I've only got the one, the Sound Blaster Live card. But if you had other cards in your system, they would show up in here. And you can refer to the online documentation for an example of this, which I did with a computer that did have more cards. So you can see that you can select as many cards as you like for input and output. The Microsoft Sound Mapper is sort of a generic setting which was available in previous versions, which just basically points to any sound card that you have set in the multimedia panel, which is in here in control panel. Okay, so this is the multimedia properties dialog of Windows, which is accessed, as I said, in the control panel settings, and click on the multimedia icon, which is right here, and you'll get this dialog here, which points to the sound card that you'll be using for basic everyday Windows sound use, your multimedia sound card, your default card, I guess, if you will. If you click on the advanced properties here, you can see that you can set up your speakers if you have a card that supports 4 speakers, or if you're using headphones all the time, as I am, you can click that and apply that. This other setting here, the advanced audio properties, this is a very important one if you're using this particular driver, especially in PowerTracks. And what this is it has a couple of settings for hardware acceleration and for sample rate conversion quality. This is the one that we're interested in here, and I always set that to best. Normally it comes default to good, but I set that to best, which is a little bit harder on, more taxing on your computer, but as it says below here, it provides the best quality sample rate conversion. So that'll give us the best quality sound that we possibly can out of our particular sound card. And to apply those settings, you just press the apply button. Similarly, in the recording properties, you can click on that tab, and this is very, very important that we set our sample rate conversion quality to best, because then that will give us the highest possible recording quality available to that particular sound card. So I like to, normally these come default to this, and I like to visit this dialog right away and before I do any recording, and make sure that this is set to best and full. If you are having trouble with your sound card, or if you're having locking up problems or something, you can try backing this one off. It disables various features of your sound card. We usually leave it at the recommended setting, which is full. Very rarely will you experience problems there. None of these other tabs are too applicable to us at the moment, so we're just going to close this. Okay, so here we are back at our audio driver settings, and I'm just going to set the Sound Blaster live, just to ensure that that's the card we are using. I know it's the default card, and in this particular computer, this happens to be the only sound card in it. But we're just going to ensure that PowerTracks is definitely going directly to that card, not going through the Microsoft Sound Mapper. We're using that driver very specifically, and we just press OK to confirm that, and that's that dialog there. So of course it doesn't do us much good without a song with some audio in it. So what I'm going to do now is open up a song that comes with PowerTracks version 6, which you'll probably find in a folder called Demo Song, I believe. And it's a little song I've created from partly from our multi-tracks CDs, which you may or may not have, which contain lots of digital audio on them. And what I've done is I've added to those multi-tracks. We actually were fortunate enough to have the guitar player and the piano player at the time also playing on MIDI controller instruments. And what this allows us to do is have a visual representation, like on the guitar fretboard, of the music, although not necessarily listening to the MIDI. We can turn the MIDI, in fact, right down or right off in the mixer panel right here. As I've done here, tracks 3 and 4, which are the MIDI tracks, I've turned right down to 0. But what it's going to enable us to do is to see the tracks as they're being played, and also see the notation. But we're actually going to be listening to the actual audio sound coming out of the guitar amp and the keyboard amp, and it gives us obviously a very realistic sound. So if we had 2 sound cards set up in this computer, we would access them, be able to choose between them, very similar to if we had multiple MIDI cards set up to this computer, or multiple MIDI ports, in that you use the part column here to direct the sound of a given track out to the particular sound card. So in this case, if we had 2 sound cards in this computer, we'd have the electric bass and the drums going through sound card 1, and the keyboard and guitar playing going through sound card 2. And since the sound cards, most sound cards are usually stereo, what that means is that we can pan the bass to the left side of sound card 1 and the drums to the right side of sound card 1. And the same with the keyboard and the guitar. And that way we get 4 discrete streams of audio coming to our mixer. And depending on your setup, you may want to output those separate streams to, say, 4 different speakers and get a surround sound mix. You'd have an instrument in each speaker. Or output special signal processing, or maybe you have another effect that you want to apply just to the guitar in real time, and this allows us to do that. So if you click in here, this is where you get the dialog that allows you to direct your sound to different cards. As I've said, all I have in this machine is a Sound Blaster Live, but if I had a Yamaha or another type of sound card, or maybe an earlier Sound Blaster, I could direct this particular instrument, this track, to that sound card. And the way I would separate the streams again is to revisit the mixer and pan each track left and hard right. See, as I've done here, left and right, left and right, and that way we'll get separate, almost like mono tracks out of each for each instrument. The panning and the volume settings are applicable to audio. The chorus and reverb settings here are not applicable. The other thing you might notice about this particular mixer, if you've used PowerTracks before, is that it doesn't run out of space at track 8 or 10. It keeps going right until track 16. So that's quite nice. So that allows us to, at a glance, simulate a 16-track recording mixing board, so that you can have a mixture of MIDI tracks, say, over here, and have your audio tracks here, and allows you to see at a glance all your tracks at once without having to go down here and select the different ones. If 16 isn't enough, of course, you can still go and see the next 16 tracks, and again till 48. For a lot of people, tracks 1 to 16 will be enough, and that's all you'll have to use. Although with digital audio, you can quickly run out. So here I've panned them all left and right, and so I'm going to close that down for now, and we'll hear how that sounds. Okay, so that's sounding pretty good. Here's this feature that I told you about. We'll click on the guitar track and open the guitar window, and we can see, even though we're hearing very realistic, the digital audio of the guitar, we're hearing, or we're viewing the MIDI part. So we can go back and visit our window here, and all these things that I mentioned before are applicable to this song. So there it's showing us the scale tones. So these are what are commonly referred to as the box positions, and we can see that this song is played a lot in the third position, going up to the fifth position, which we'd probably expect in the key of F. You'll notice that the notes change color a little bit, depending on what note they are. That's to indicate a few different things. The solid green color indicates that it's a scale tone. The yellow color indicates that it's outside of the scale. And the blue color indicates that there's a bend happening, so that note is actually being bent up to. It's not being fretted there, it's being bent from a previous fret. So that's sounding pretty good. You can also see the piano part right here. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to mute. I like this keyboard patch, but I'm going to see what it would sound like with a little bit slightly different keyboard sound. We can do this because we have a MIDI part. So we can do this very easily just by muting this part, which I do by double-clicking in the part column. And then I go over to this piano here, and I turn up my mixer. That's channel 3. Now I'm going to do here is open the patch and try it on a few different instruments. So we've got the keyboard muted, and we're trying this on the Rhodes piano now. That sounds quite good. We might want to try it on quite a few different instruments. I don't know if that one fits, but maybe if you've got a slightly different organ sound that you have in mind for the song, you can just substitute that part in. And we've got a rock organ, or maybe you want other guitar parts. So let's just mute that guy down again and bring back our digital audio part. We can do the same thing with the guitar part. Let's hear how that sounds. We mute that. We bring up the guitar part here in our mixer. We'll turn that one back down. Just close that. So it's defaulted to the last patch we used, which was that Vibes patch. That doesn't sound quite too good, so let's try it with a guitar. So that's a MIDI guitar we're hearing instead of the audio guitar part. You could hear how it sounds on bass, and we'd probably want to also bring that down an octave. So let's do that. We can just go in the key column here, go -12, and that gives us an octave below. Sounds a little bit more realistic for a bass, I think. And we could go through the different parts. So that's kind of fun. You can turn your guitar player into a Seinfeld bass player. All right. Well, that's. I think that we've done enough with the MIDI features here, and we've shown the sound card outputs, the multiple sound card support. We've shown that on the output. The same can be said for the input, the recording. If you had your whole band and you wanted to record on separate tracks all at once, you could do that, and you do that in the exact same way with the panning controls, and set the parts to the various parts that you want, and you can record all your parts at once. So one of the best new features of PowerTracks version 6 is the inclusion of another 6 audio effects plugins, which are very handy if you do any digital audio editing, and who doesn't these days? With PowerTracks, of course, we can combine MIDI and digital audio, and so we generally use digital audio for vocals or guitar parts, or some parts that aren't easy to simulate in MIDI. And referring back to our example that is used in the online documentation in your PowerTracks addendum or in the manual, is tutor3.seq, which is a combined MIDI and digital audio song. And we're going to just try a few, we'll just leave the MIDI out of it for the most part now, since we've demonstrated a lot of those features already. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try some of these new plug-in digital audio effects and see how those sound. They can all be accessed under the Edit Audio Effects window, and as you can see here, we've got quite a list. They probably drop off your screen of new plugins. We've got a hum filter, enhancer, exciter, pitch shift, auto wah, DS, These are all the new ones, and the ones that were introduced in version 5 are the top 19 here: the gain change, the EQ, the tone controls, various delay and modulation-based effects here like reverb, echo. We've got some gain effects like distortion, gate, and compression. The DS effect is used very, very commonly when recording vocal parts or spoken words even. What that refers to is the S sound that quite often happens with in people's mouths as they're recorded. Microphones tend to accentuate this sound of the wind whistling over your teeth, which in my particular case is even more predominant than with some other people. Some people have it even more. I'm probably about the middle, so I'm definitely a candidate for the DS feature. And the auto wah feature is this plug-in effect. Probably best way to describe it is the sound effect that you might hear on a lot of guitar playing in the Jimi Hendrix days, the 60s, 70s, sort of almost talking guitar sound that you'll hear from. And what this basically occurs when you take a specific frequency and sweep it, change its gain of a steady sound, and this frequency sweeping creates, when used properly, can create a very interesting vocal type quality to instruments. Pitch shift is a very common feature these days, and what that does is probably the biggest use for it is to take a vocal track and that's maybe just a tad out of tune, and maybe just pinch that in a bit, maybe up or down. Usually a lot of singers sing slightly flat, and what you can do is launch this dialogue after they've recorded the track. It doesn't happen real time, but after they've recorded the track and they've gone home for the evening, then when you can go to work and fix the track. We call this sometimes fixing it in the mix. And what that'll do is launch a dialogue. We'll see if it comes up here. Right now it's thinking that we're going to apply this to the guitar solo track. And this gives us a dialogue that changes. Here's where you would change just slightly out of tuning. This is the sense, and that's like very small slices of semitones. Okay, you actually need 100 of these to get to one semitone. So that would just say if our singer was a little bit flat, we'd probably apply maybe a 5-cent pitch shift up to that vocal track, and that would put it perfectly in tune with the rest of our instruments that are already fixed. I guess the other way is you could detune all the other instruments. You could go the other way if you want to leave the vocal track, and you could tune everyone else down minus 5 cents. That's doable as well, but usually it's easier to take the one that's out of tune rather than detune everyone else. And the other use for this effect is to change the semitones. And what this does is essentially allows you to harmonize a vocal track. Quite often it's used in octaves. So you could play a guitar in one octave or your instrument and then transpose that up or down 12 semitones, which is one octave. And that would create a much fatter track and sound like unison playing with another instrument. That's a very common effect. This setting here is how often the sample is cut up to create this effect, and this is saying that it's changed every 50 milliseconds. Generally, the lower down you go, the better results you'll get. And this really depends, though, on the type of input sound. Here we can save the preset. So if we have specific settings that we do all the time, we can save that in a data location here, and then always refer back to that. For example, if we have a singer that always sings slightly flat, we might want to do this, save it as the person, and that way we can always refer back to that one. We might call it here, we'll call it this particular vocalist. And we go save preset. Then we can always refer back to that person. Okay, so I'm going to be taking a look at applying some of these new effects that we have, our 6 new plugin effects, to the guitar track. Before I do any sort of editing at all, or applying of effects to any track that I've recorded, I like to make a duplicate of it so I can always refer back to the original very quickly without having to reload another WAV file or something. So the way I do that is I go track duplicate, and in here it just says we're going to duplicate track 8, and where would you like to put it? I've said track 9 here, and that's why I've got this track here. So I might want to say that this is my blues guitar edited track, and so that way I can safely keep my original track here and start just working with my edit track on track 9. So what I can also do is mute this one so that I'm not hearing both of them at the same time and getting confused. So this way I can safely start applying some of these new effects to this track. And the first one I'm going to do is the one I just talked about, which is the pitch shift. And what I'll do is I'll select that, and I'm going to take that slightly out of tune. And the reason I'm going to do this is because all I want to do is fatten up the track at this point. So what I'm going to do is make it appear like there's 2 guitar players playing, but of course no 2 guitar players tune their guitars exactly the same. And so an easy way to simulate that you've got 2 people playing is to take one of them out of tune just slightly. So what I'm going to do here is process that track. We could preview it for any amount of seconds we want, just to make sure that this is in fact what we want to do. Maybe before we do that, let's look at what it would sound like if we changed the pitch of the instrument quite drastically in semitones, and changed it. Maybe we're going to change it up an octave, so that we've got guitar playing at the original octave and at the higher octave. If we preview that, we're going to hear that guitar played very, very high, and you can hear it sort of almost sounds chipmunky in a way, because that's getting very, very high. You wouldn't want to leave that track if we process that all by itself. You'd want to use that sort of effect in conjunction with the original tone, and for that it would sound quite good, and it would act as a complement to the original one. If you wanted to change just one semitone, maybe to change the key a little bit of all the tracks, that would be a good idea, and we probably won't hear much degradation of the sound at all. So there we would be changing this song to an F sharp key, and where the important thing to remember here is that we're not changing the tempo of the song at all. So unlike speeding up your record player or tape player or slowing it down, we're keeping the original tempo of the song the same. So if it's a 5-minute song, it's going to be still 5 minutes, but what we're changing is the pitch of the song, and this can be accomplished through the magic of a lot of number crunching that our computers here are good at. So getting back to what I was going to originally do, I'm going to take this guitar track and process it 50 cents out of tune to the original recording that we have. And what I'm hoping for is a slightly fatter guitar sound. So we could preview that just to make sure that that sounds right. Everything's working. Maybe that's a little too much. That's almost a whole semitone, isn't it? It's halfway there. So I don't think most guitar players play that out of tune. Let's maybe drop this down to 15. Okay, so we're going to process that track, and what we'll end up with is two guitar parts that are identical in every way, except one is slightly out of tune with the other. And that may sound like a bad thing, but actually this happens quite often. And we can hear what that's going to sound like. We unmute that track so that we have the original, and we have the one, we could call it part 2, or guitar 2 or something. And we'll hear what both of those sound together. So let's turn off all the other tracks because we're concentrating on the guitar track. We're going to mute all the other tracks and just hear what these two guitars now sound like together. So we press play. And so what we ended up with actually is almost sounding like still one guitar part, but it with a chorus. And that's because, in effect, that's what you're doing when you apply a chorus or modulation type effects, is you're changing the pitch. So I'd say that's not enough, so that's okay. What we can do is go into the Edit, Undo Pitch Shift, and press that. We'll get the original 2 channels back, and we can go back and revisit our audio effects, and we're going to say back down to Pitch Shift, and this time we're going to set this maybe a little higher. I guess maybe we were right the first time. Let's set it back to 50. Okay, we'll process that, and that takes a little while. Okay, and it's generating a new waveform of that because it's a slightly different track now. And so we'll play that back and hear how that sounds. Yeah, so now we've got it too much. Now it just sounds like kind of a wobbly guitar. So somewhere in between there, between 20 and 50 is probably our optimal setting. We just have to play with that until we get it exactly right. With the other instruments, actually, that would probably not start sounding too bad. Let's try to turn all the other guys on and play the whole thing. Okay, so that's one of the effects, and let's try a few other ones out while we're here. Some of the new ones. This one is especially applicable to guitar recordings, and that is the hum filter. If you've ever recorded a guitar, you probably know about all the 60 cycle if you're in North America, or 50 cycle if you're in Europe or Britain or something. The sound that the household electricity makes, and it usually creeps into your guitar through the pickups or through a guitar amp, and it's constantly plagues guitar recordings, and it's primarily the reason why certain types of pickups were invented, to cancel that hum effect out. It becomes especially bad if you're recording in front of your computer, because then you can also get, in addition to that, you can get all the hums from your monitor and stuff. So this effect attempts to clean up a lot of that, and we access it down here in the plugins menu. And this particular guitar part was recorded in a studio, so it's not too bad in terms of hum. But here we can apply this. Essentially, it's an EQ filter, and notch that very specific frequency out of our recording. And what we'll end up with is a track that doesn't have that humming in it, which is, as I say, is especially prevalent with, say, a Stratocaster guitar or something with a single coil. And but it's not necessarily a sound we want in our recording. So we can take that right out, and what we're left with is the same guitar part minus that hum, and we shouldn't really notice any degradation of sound quality of the original track, because it's going to leave all those other frequencies alone, other than some of the harmonics that are also based on that 60 cycles hum. So we'll let's just mute out everything else. So we're just hearing that guitar part. The other way we could do that is we could press the solo button, and that way we'll only hear the part that's highlighted here. So we'll do both, and press play. And as you can tell, our guitar part is pretty much intact, except for we've just eliminated any lights or hum sounds that you would hear. Essentially the sounds that you hear when you're holding your guitar but not playing anything. All that background noise is usually can be associated with hum. It's not going to eliminate everything, but it'll do a good job at cleaning a lot of that up. Okay, so we're ready for another effect here, and I think a lot of these effects are actually what's considered mastering effects, and those would be like the enhancer. These are sort of black box magic effects that you usually use at the end of your editing and recording, right before your mix down, or maybe during your mix down, and they sort of put back all the frequencies that maybe got shifted or overly reduced or affected in some way, either when it was originally recorded from perhaps a tape deck or something like that didn't collect those frequencies in the first place, or as a result of a lot of editing that we've done here. So the enhancer puts those back and sort of livens up the track again. Similarly, the exciter is used quite often with vocalists and other instruments, and they basically zero in on a frequency and really accentuate that frequency. So perhaps if there's a very mid-range vocal part, they can really spruce that frequency up, and you result in a much better track. So what I'm going to use here, though, is since we have a guitar part, is I've already reduced the hum that was from the lighting or the electrical system while we're recording. We don't need to de-ess because obviously a guitar is not susceptible to that sort of phenomenon of air going over teeth. That's mainly a vocal effect. We've already adjusted the pitch a little bit, so I guess the only thing left to do here is apply the auto wah and try to inject a little Jimi Hendrix into our guitar part here. And this dialogue looks quite complicated, but it's actually very, very simple, and it's, as I said, just sweeping a particular frequency back and forth from low to high or high to low. In this case, in a very automated way. Guitar players used to, which is why it's called auto. A regular wah effect with a guitar is a lot of times achieved with a foot pedal, and the guitar player will actually move the foot pedal up and down and achieve the same effect. But this is basically what we're doing. We're having the computer automatically apply the foot pedal pressure up and down for us. So basically these controls allow you to zero in on a frequency that's very interesting in that particular track. A guitar part will be different from a vocal part, which will be different again from an instrument, a sax player or something like that. But you can achieve some pretty neat effects with this. It's heard quite often in more modern recordings now. It's coming back in dance mixes and hip hop and that sort of thing. And being that this one is automated, it can sound very computer generated, which is desirable for some types of music. So we're just gonna preview what this would sound like, and that sounds very, very low, and it wasn't really enough time to allow it to go from low to high. So what we'd have to do is increase the preview time, and I think we're going to boost this resonance so that we really hear a dramatic effect of that frequency. We'll preview it first, and we'll hear how that sounds. Now we're starting to get how it sounds. So that's a pretty good effect. And if we're happy with our settings here, we just press the process button, and that will set off and do the entire track, which may take a little while here because it's a very there's quite a few calculations to be made here before it can produce the rendered wave. So these effects can all be, of course, undone as well using the Edit Undo feature, which is nice if you've ever made a mistake. And don't forget that we've always also got the original track of the guitar part on track 8, which we haven't touched. We haven't edited it or changed it in any way. So we've always got that piece of material to work with if we need to refer back to it or start over again and build up our effects based on the original. Sometimes these effects can get a little bit out of hand if you're not careful, and then you may find it necessary to put that away a while and go back to the original and start over again. So let's hear how that sounds now. A little bit further. Actually, what we're going to do is turn everybody back on, and we'll hear how it sounds in the context of the band. Okay, so everybody's on. Let's turn this one guitar off. Okay, another thing to notice about that particular effect is that it's made it very, very quiet. So there's a couple ways we can fix that. We could go into our mixer and temporarily increase the volume here just by raising it on our slider, and that gets us a little bit of volume. The other way, of course, is to reduce everyone else. We can turn everything else down. And then we can hear that track a little bit better. What we might want to prefer to do is, because if we look at the waveform here, we can see that it's been reduced quite a lot. What we might want to do is apply another effect, which is back to one of our old ones, which is the gain effect. And what we can do is boost our track back up. What happened is a lot of the frequencies, because of the nature of that effect, a lot of the frequencies were taken out of any particular sample, and so what we want to do is bring our gain back up, and I've chose a setting of 6 here to increase, but to not distort our track, and we're applying a constant gain, which means it's not going to vary depending on the track, which means we'll keep our same dynamics, but we're going to increase the whole overall volume of the track by this much, and being careful not to distort the track or put it into clipping. If we went too high, this waveform might become too high and result in clipping, which we definitely don't want. So now we can go back to our mixer, and maybe we'll just turn things back to normal here, because that guitar part now looks quite loud. It's back to our original amplitude, and so we'll play this, and we should hear the guitar part much better now. We can always boost it a little bit more with our mixer. So we've used that effect in combination with our detune effect, which results in a fairly strange sounding guitar part, but used sparingly and maybe just a few bars, that could be quite an interesting little part. And it's almost starting to sound like not a guitar anymore, which for some music is desirable. So that's that setting. And of course you'll find all the complete help topics in the help system by pressing F1, or if you're in any dialogue at any time, you can just press F1 or press the help button, and there's lots of detailed information about any particular feature. So that's it for this quick gloss over of some of the new features of PowerTracks, and there's of course many more that we haven't looked at. I'm sure you'll find quite a few useful features, and that's the new version. So hope you like it.